Right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know that some people are still joining us, and so we'll probably just get started as a few more of our friends join the webinar here in just a moment. So first of all, welcome everyone. Just to inform you that we have already started the recording for this webinar. So if you would like to review a recording of the webinar later, please allow about 5 to 7 business days for the posting of this to the IWD website. I will use the registration list and try to email out the link once it's available as well. But it will be posted on the IWD website in about 5 to 7 business days, if not a little bit sooner. So again, welcome to everyone that is joining us today as we discuss the 2024 Child Care Business Incentives Grant Opportunity. This is kind of a second iteration of a program that we offered in 2022, titled under the same title. So if you're familiar with that opportunity, this is a second iteration of that 2022 program with a few small changes to it. So please remember to put your questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to respond to those as time allows. I'm uncertain if I'll be able to answer every question today, and some of those questions may need some additional discussion or additional research. So a Q&A will also accompany the posting of this recorded webinar on the IWD website. Again, please allow about 5 to 7 business days for this posting to be online. My name is Patrick Rice. I'm the Grants Bureau Chief with Iowa Workforce Development, and I'll be your main contact for this opportunity. All right. To get started, as some of you may already have read in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or I might refer to it as the NOFO, the purpose of the 2024 Child Care Business Incentives Grant is to establish businesses or business consortiums to build local state of Iowa license child care centers, not at the expense of existing or available slots in the local area, to address the supply, demand, and child age group gaps within their community. If you haven't already accessed or read the Notice of Funding Opportunity from the press release, the IWD website, or in Iowa Grants, I strongly encourage you to do so to better understand the award and the requirements associated with the funding. This award is funded by the American Rescue Plan Act, which are federal funds through the state and local fiscal recovery fund, also sometimes referred to as ARPA or SLFRF. Awarded businesses will be considered subrecipients under 2 CFR 200 uniform guidance. Grant funds are administered as a reimbursement only, and no advance payments will be provided. Since these are federal funds, all expenses will be subject to evidence that funds were expended in compliance with procurement processes outlined in 2 CFR 200, 317 through 327, and state procurement policies. If you're not quite sure what this means, we'll highlight some of this a little bit more in detail in a little bit later on into the presentation. Right, so some important dates for you to consider just to kind of get these highlighted at the beginning. Applications are due by 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on December 23rd, 2024. Okay, so we have right at 20 days right now. If awarded, grant award funds must be obligated by the subrecipient or the awardee, which basically means the funds must be under contract with a general contractor by June 30th of 2025. This will provide subrecipients an additional 12 months to fully expend their funds prior to the end of the grant performance, which is June 30th of 2026. If subrecipients are unable to obligate their funds, which again means to be under contract with a general contractor by June 30th of 2025, IWD reserves the right to rescind the award agreement at IWD's discretion. Awarded projects not meeting these timelines may result in a default, and the award may be rescinded entirely. Any grant funds not expended for activity completed by June 30th of 2026 will be forfeited, and IWD will not be obligated to provide additional funding for program completion. Again, to highlight these dates, applications are due December 23rd. The period of performance begins February 1st of 2025. You must be under contract with a general contractor or have the funds obligated by June 30th of 2025. And all activities, as well as your center must be licensed and opened, must be completed by June 30th of 2026. So that was just a quick overview of some of the important dates. Okay. In the NOFO, or in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, there are some qualifications listed to determine eligibility. First, the applicant or the consortium must not be in the primary business of providing childcare services already. That's probably the biggest one. So you can't already be in the primary business of providing childcare services. Second, the applicant or the consortium must have a minimum of 75 full-time employees. This is explained a little bit more in detail in the NOFO itself, but if you're submitting an application on behalf of the consortium, each partner in the consortium it is not required to each have 75 full-time employees, but added together, the consortium must have a minimum of 75 full-time employees. And one last criteria is that your business or any business partners as part of your consortium may not have held layoffs or layoff extensions within the last 6 months, which is since June 1st of 2024. Okay, so those are three pieces of eligibility requirements that you want to make sure that you meet prior to moving on with submitting an application. So if you've determined that you are an eligible applicant, what are some of the next steps you need to understand? I mentioned earlier that all activity must be completed by the end of the period of performance, which is June 30th of 2026. The main thing to know is this means the facility must become an Iowa HHS licensed facility and open prior to the end of the period of performance for this award, which is again June 30th of 2026. This is providing about 17 months total for completion. So February 2025, which is the beginning of the grant period, through June 30th of 2026. And we realize that this is 17 months is kind of a condensed time frame when you're talking about getting blueprints and getting an architectural design to building a facility, getting licensed and everything. So just be aware of that timeline. To be helpful, I try to outline some of the major milestones that you might need to have some additional consideration for forward planning. If awarded, part of the beginning stages of this project will include having approved architectural floor plans by the State of Iowa Building Code, which is done through DIAL, which is the Department of Inspections, Appeals, and Licensing. After that, and you start your construction, you will need to receive an approved fire marshal inspection from the State of Iowa to ensure the building is in compliance. Once you have that fire marshal inspection and the building is open and completed, then once those steps are completed, you'll need to start applying for your license with Iowa HHS. All projects must be completed, licensed as a child care center by the State of Iowa, and open for operation, and all grant funds expended by June 30th of 2026. So referring back to the purpose of this award just a little bit, the purpose is to enable businesses to build or business consortiums to build local licensed childcare centers, not at the expense of existing or available slots in the local area to address the supply and demand and child care or child age group gaps reserved for their employees and their community. To highlight this a little bit more, the first focus is for the business to provide a licensed childcare center to be utilized by their employees. Afterwards, any remaining slots may be accessed to the larger community. So part of the application is going to ask how many childcare slots is your project going to create? This will need to be defined between slots available for your employees and then also slots available to the general public. Your project may choose not to create slots for the general public, and that's completely fine to keep 100% of the slots reserved for your employees. Because again, the primary focus should be creating childcare slots for your employees to utilize to help address the barriers of supply and demand of childcare that they are facing. As you read through the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, you'll also see some priorities that are highlighted. Just going to highlight these four real quick, give a little bit more understanding around them. So priority number one, the counties that are have a greater demand will receive additional priority points. Applicants should take into account the childcare age group gaps based on the supply and demand as well. So in the NOFO, there is a link that'll take you to a map that will provide this supply and demand gap for you. This information was provided by IWD, or provided to IWD by Iowa HHS. And so if you feel that this is an inaccurate representation, be sure to reach out to Iowa HHS, and they'll put you in touch with some individuals that might be able to give you a more understanding of how these maps were created. Areas highlighted on the map with a greater demand will receive a priority. But like I said, please take into account the age breakouts when considering demand. So the map does a really nice job of breaking out overall general supply and demand gaps, but then also broken out by different ages. So infant, age 2, age 3, age 4, age 5. So it does a nice job of breaking out those different age groups. Priority number 2. This award is designed to expand the number of childcare slots in your community. Applicants requesting funding simply to maintain current slot capacities will not receive this priority. So if your plan is to partner with a childcare provider to remodel a building, but not add additional slots, that's fine, but again, the priority is to increase the number of available slots. Priority number 3, again, this is not a requirement in the that the childcare center is built on site. However, since the intention of the award is to promote businesses' employees as the priority, the location of the childcare center is factored in as a priority. Proposals for the construction of on-site locations will receive these additional points. And the last priority, again, this priority does not exclude you from partnering with an existing childcare facility that may have already received a childcare challenge grant or an investing in Iowa childcare investing in childcare in Iowa's childcare, which are both opportunities provided by IWD and HHS in 2021 and 2022. But applicants that have not received prior grant funding will be considered a priority for this award. So again, if you choose to partner with a provider that has already received prior grant funding, be sure to provide evidence of how this project will provide additional slots to your employees to ensure these slots are not at the expense of current available slots offered, because those current slots have already been counted under different other prior grant programs. So again, number 4 is it does not exclude you from partnering with a childcare center that may have already received a childcare challenge grant from IWD or an investing in Iowa's childcare grant from HHS, but just something to take into consideration. All right, when you're considering your projects, be sure to keep these other few factors in mind. Projects that propose building a new facility, so from the ground up, will have a $3 million maximum award amount. And projects that propose expanding, retrofitting, and/or renovating a facility will have a $1.5 million award amount maximum. Determination of that criteria will sometimes be based on square footage. Another item to know is that all projects are required to have a 50-50 private match for all grant funds provided, which means that if you receive a $3 million award amount, you will need to provide a total of $6 million in validated expenses to fully satisfy the award amount. Validation of the private match expenses must be expended and approved by IWD prior to any grant funds becoming available. So that's an important key to keep in mind, is that your match requirement has to be completely spent and validated prior to you receiving or requesting grant funds. In-kind and volunteer expenses are not eligible under this award. Following the conclusion of the award, all awarded projects will also be required to annually provide evidence to IWD of maintaining a state of Iowa childcare license and continue childcare operations at over 50% capacity for a minimum of 5 years after the period of performance ends to maintain that compliance with the federal interest period. So Another thing just to keep in mind, you do have that 5-year minimum time that you're required to maintain the site as a child care facility that's licensed under the state of Iowa, and also have at least 50% capacity filled within those during each of those 5 years. So just a couple, three things to keep in mind as you work through and consider your application. All right. This slide highlights the eligible expense categories for the grant funds. Again, since this is an infrastructure award, it makes sense why the majority of these categories are going to be for construction-related expenses. Eligible funds can only be used for expenses related to construction to the child care project identified in the approved application. Direct payments to employees for child care expenses are ineligible, and grant funds cannot be used to subsidize the existing childcare expenses for employees. Now, I know this has already been stated on the last slide, but expenses related to the private match requirement must be expended and fully validated prior to the subrecipients being eligible to submit for reimbursement for the grant funds. Okay, validation of both match and awarded funds will be reviewed to ensure funds are expended in compliance with procurement processes outlined in 2 CFR 200-317-327 and state procurement policies as defined in the contract agreement. Now, if you're considering applying for this program, this slide highlights some of the best practices, or at least some things to consider that we've learned over the course of the first child care business incentives grant. The first one is set calendar reminders for when reports are due. We have a quarterly report every that will be due, so make sure you set calendar reminders for when those reports are due. Also, plan ahead for time to complete these reports. They're not something that can be done within 5 minutes right before, so make sure you plan ahead and have time to complete those reports. Also create a calendar for large milestones for you to accomplish, and so that way you can keep a detailed record of your progress. If you start falling behind on those milestones, that'll help you, that might help you keep you on track or get you back on track. Clearly identify the items that you're seeking for reimbursement. Sometimes we have a tendency to try to lump similar things together associated with the project to make it make less paperwork or less data entry. But usually the required information is often in those small details, and when you start to lump things and lump similar items together, it usually starts raising questions during the reimbursement review process, and will likely ask you to separate them back out anyway. So please clearly identify the items. You've probably heard this phrase before: document it or it didn't happen. That's so true when it comes to grants. Be sure to keep accurate and detailed records of your processes. Everything is going to be reviewed in this process, from the way you advertised your RFP, the scoring rubric used, that you used to score the sealed bids as they came in from the various different general contractors, down to your expense documentation. Keep your documentation organized and available. If you're unsure about something, make sure you ask a question. And before you sign a contract with your general contractor, it's good advice to send the draft to IWD for a review as well. Again, these are federal funds, and so there are some federal requirements that need to be included in those contract agreements. Know who your partners are and make sure they are also informed of the federal requirements associated with this award. We understand that the 17 months is a condensed time frame, and there are certain pieces of information that can be easily overlooked as you move quickly through the processes. So be sure to ask questions and stay informed. And probably most important, and I referenced this earlier already, but keep your documentation organized and accessible. Make additional notes on the documents if needed to ensure your documentation, to ensure you document why a decision was made, when it was made, especially when it comes to expense documents and the categorization of those various use of funds. My PDFs have little notes attached to them all over the place, so it's perfectly fine to make those notes so you keep yourself organized and so you can refer back to those notes 6 months down the road if there's a question. All right, so I know we've made it to everyone's favorite topics, policy and procurement requirements. So these next two slides are included to highlight some of the federal requirements under each award will be subject to. You at least are familiar with the requirements, but also so you know what might be required for this award. Now, you might be asking yourself, why does all this matter? Why does it matter that we follow these provisions? First of all, remember that these are federal tax dollars, and so it's designed. These provisions are designed to protect the public interest in tax dollars. This also helps us ensure that we encourage fair and open competition when utilizing taxpayer dollars. It's designed to prevent price gouging, prevent or reduce conflicts of interest, all aimed to try and reduce or stop, to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. So again, please do some research into these subparts to familiarize yourself with some of the testing that we will be doing here at IWD with your fund requests. Right now, procurement. Procurement will be a topic of lengthy discussion for awardees during the awardee webinar. But just to highlight this now, this is a topic that you should be at least semi-knowledgeable about prior to applying, just to ensure that your business has the ability to maintain the federal compliance for this award. Most everything associated with this award will likely fall into the competitive bid proposal category. So be sure you understand those federal procurement requirements and to ensure that your company's procurement policy aligns with what is required for this award. As a note, the state of Iowa is not allowing sole source procurement under this expenditure category under SLFRF. Again, procurement is something that we're going to be discussing in detail if you are awarded during an awardee webinar. But just to highlight this now, make sure that you do have some research completed on your company's procurement policies. Okay, so you're ready to start your application. Applicants must submit applications electronically through IowaGrants.gov. If you're not familiar with Iowa Grants, the link highlighted on this slide, and I believe it's going to be attached in the chat here soon. This will help you create a profile and start going through the first step of this process. This link will take you, like I said, to a short video that'll help you go through those steps. Please copy this link, watch the video if you're new to the Iowa Grants system. IWD recommends that applicants create an account in Iowa Grants and begin the application process well in advance of the deadline to avoid any delays in the profile approval process. For registration guidance, you can also, if you don't want to use the link, you can also access the IowaGrants.gov new user registration instructions, which is Appendix B in the NOFO. Okay, so you've read the notice of funding opportunity, you've determined that you're eligible, you've created an account in Iowa Grants, and you're ready to start compiling your information for the application. Please be sure that you review Appendix A in the NOFO, which lists the scoring criteria. You can see the various sections all totaling at 100 points. For details on each specific question in each section, please see Appendix A in the NOFO. Applicants submitting an application for consideration must also be sure to attach the following attachments: a completed budget form, which is an Excel document, which is part of the NOFO in Iowa Grants, a completed W-9, a partnership agreement or agreements if you're going to be part of a consortium, so that way we know the businesses that are associated. And we would also like to see evidence of a partnership with the Child Care Collaborative Iowa to assist with financial management. Now, that one is not a requirement, but it is something that we are asking to see evidence of that partnership if you have that. And then, of course, if you have other attachments that you would like to provide to help support your application, please combine them as one PDF, and you can submit it as other attachments. As a quick note for applicant clarification, some applicants may receive requests from IWD to provide clarifying information for their application during the review process. This information is used by IWD in making those funding recommendations, and a request for clarification does not guarantee a grant award, and applications may be recommended for funding even if we do not ask those clarifying questions. So simply because we reach out does not necessarily mean that you're going to be awarded, and simply because we did not reach out doesn't necessarily exclude you from an award. But failure to respond to these requests adequately and in a timely manner may result in the removal of your application for consideration. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to open up Iowa Grants, and that way you can hopefully take you through a few steps of how to navigate the system. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, close my PowerPoint real quick, and then I'm going to go into funding opportunities. So now I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to be watching or viewing Iowa Grants. Okay, so I'm going to be turning and looking at a different screen, so apologies that I'm not going to be directly facing you. But when you log into Iowa Grants for the first time, or when you log into Iowa Grants, the first thing you want to go to is on the left-hand side, a ribbon on the left-hand side, and you want to select Funding Opportunities. When you select, oh, and now I need to need to log in real quick. Okay, so this is what you should see when you log in as Iowa Grants. You should see your name, your role as an external user, and the first thing you want to see is the um, funding opportunities. When you select funding opportunities, you will see everything that is green as posted. You won't see any of these red test options. You will only see the things that are posted in green. Since this opportunity is offered by Iowa Workforce Development, you need to scroll to the bottom because W is towards the end of the alphabet. And you want to look for the Future Ready Iowa 2024 Child Care Business Incentives 2.0 grant opportunity. Again, the easiest way to find this grant is just to scroll to the bottom, and we're the last opportunity that is currently posted under Workforce Development. Once you find that opportunity, go ahead and select it, and that'll open up a short summary of the notice of funding opportunity. So this is not the full NOFO. This is only an abbreviated version of the notice of funding opportunity. Things to highlight is you'll see the final application deadline is December 23rd, 2024 at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can see the project dates are highlighted, February 1st, 2025 through June 30th of 2026. And then you can start scrolling through some of the information. The funding priorities are listed. The map link is, I mentioned that map link earlier in the presentation is available. You can see the information about the $3 million maximum or the $1.5 million maximum, depending on your projects. And then you can see the funding periods again are highlighted here. Use of funds, which we highlighted in the presentation, and then at the bottom are the attachments. Now, I mentioned as part of the application, you must submit the Excel budget form. This is where you access that template. So you can select the blue link for Appendix C, which is the 2024 grant request budget form. There's also a link that you can access a blank W-9. And then you can also download the full notice of funding opportunity, which again, what we just viewed was an abbreviated version of it. This link will take you to the full notice of funding opportunity, which will have all the attachments or all the appendices that I mentioned earlier, such as Appendix A, B, and C. Okay. If I want to start my application, I scroll back to the top and I can select the large green button on the right-hand side called Start New Application. Once I select that, it's going to ask me for some general information of who am I, what is some contact information, and what do I want to title my application. Okay. If that's as far as you get, that's perfectly fine. Click Save. The next time you come into the system and log into the system, you'll see that your application that you just started is going to appear at the top, and it's going to be in editing status. So this is an application that I started previously, so I'm just going to select this, and it's going to pick up right where I left off. Okay, so you can see that I entered my contact information, but that's as far as I got. I haven't entered anything else, such as the minority impact statement, anything for the cover sheet. So now I need to start opening up this document and doing some editing to it. So I'm going to go ahead and select Edit Application, which is the green button on the right-hand side. And it's going to open up basically the steps of the application that I need to complete. So general information, you can see I've already completed. That is simply just titling my application and putting in general contact information. You can see the minority impact statement is the next section. Then we have general information, a cover sheet. This is going to ask you for some who's going to be the fiscal agent, where are you located, which U.S. representative or district are you in? And then you keep on scrolling through the different sections of the application. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the cover sheet general information. So I can just select that, and you can see that I can go ahead and start typing in information. Okay. After I finish this, I can click Save Form, and it'll take me back to an area where the information that I just typed in is now visible. Now, I can go back to this app list, which again will be the linear steps of the application that I need to submit, or I can go on next to the next item, which is the executive summary. Again, you can see that the app list has the general information, the minority impact statement, the cover sheet is what we're currently in. So you can access the different parts of the application through this tab feature, or you can go back to the app list and you can select it the next section this way. Okay, so it's the same way to navigate through the program, just whichever way is your preference. So I just selected the risk assessment, executive summary risk assessment. If I want to open up and start editing the executive summary, I click the edit form button, and then it opens up a field for me to start entering information. Now, this is a small box for a lot of information. So I like to see what I'm typing. So I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand corner until I get my double arrow icon. I'm going to click my mouse and hold down, and I'm going to drag this box into a larger area. So that way I can see what I'm typing. You'll also notice at the bottom that there are a character limit. So this is a nice tracker to keep you on track of how much room you have left in this field. Please keep in mind that these are characters, not words. We're not asking for 14,000 words. This is based on 14,000 characters. You can see that we'll need the W-9, the FEIN number, your organization legal name, and then we do have some questions for a prior grant assessment as well as conflict of interest. Okay, like I said, when you're finished with a section, save form, and that's going to save the information that you have already entered in. And you would see that typed out next to the executive summary if I would have typed anything in that box. Now, like I said, I could go back to my app list and go back to that linear view, or I can just navigate through the tab system. So my next is the main application, and this is where you're going to spend the majority of your time entering information. So this is Appendix B, that rubric that I mentioned earlier as part of the presentation. In the full notice of funding opportunity, Appendix B is where you're going to get this information of what is the information that the application is going to be asking for. Okay, so again, if I want to start editing this section, I just select Edit Form, which is the green button on the right-hand side. And it's going to open up those text box text boxes for me to be able to start entering information. Again, I have my character count listed at the bottom. And if I want to increase the size of the field to see more information, I just click and drag that box to the size that I would like it to be. Okay, you'll see that each new section is going to be highlighted. So we have our project need is one full section, and within project need we have 4 different questions that are going to be underneath project need. So project need is going to have 4 different responses that you need to respond to. Okay, each new section or each new area is going to be highlighted with a in blue, and the overall area is going to be called project need. Like I said, every time that you are done typing, make sure you select Save Form. Even if you're not completely done with the form, go ahead and click Save, because just in case for some reason the program closes or you lose power or whatever it may be, that way you have the information that you've been typing saved. So I'm just going to quickly scroll through so you can see the different areas or the different sections. So this next section is called Partnerships. So we have roles of partners, the childcare partner that you're going to be partnering with if you are partnering with one. We have the project design and timeline, listing out different barriers, how you're going to be doing recruitment for not only participants with the employees to participate in the program, but also the staff. And then we're going to be asking for childcare slots. So again, I mentioned that the purpose of this is to increase the number of childcare slots available for your employees and in your community. So we're going to be asking what is the current childcare capacity of the current childcare center. If you're going to be partnering with an established childcare provider, we're going to be asking what is the current childcare capacity. What is the current total open slot availability of that childcare facility? So say there's a facility that has enough room for 50 childcare slots, but 10 of them are currently open. So we put 50 in this first box, 10 would be in the second. We'd also ask you to classify them by age. So if your child care provider is able to provide you that information, that's going to give us more information to know how we're addressing those age gaps, which is going back to the map that was part of the application as well. We're going to be asking you for what are the additional slots that are going to be available to the employees, and then how many newest slots are going to be available to the general public. And then final, what is the anticipated final childcare capacity? So this would be the current availability or the current number of slots that the childcare center can operate under, plus any new slots that are created as part of the project. And then again, we ask them to be separated out by age group. We have our budget narratives section, which is our last one, and this is not where you attach the Excel document. This is just a narrative version of the Excel document, which is the budget form. I'm going to click Save Form, and it's going to take me back to the area. Again, if I would have typed anything into these sections, it would show up here. And the last section of the application is called Application Attachments. This is where I would attach my budget spreadsheet, which is that Excel document, any letters of commitment, my W-9, and other attachments. Anytime that you complete a section and you're completely finished and you no longer want to make any adjustments, you can mark as complete. And then if you mark it as complete, if I go back to my app list, you'll see this green check mark as marked as complete. Okay. Again, just to remind everyone, application deadline is December 23rd, 2024 at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Applications must be submitted through Iowa Grants, which is the program that we just highlighted through. If you haven't created an account in Iowa Grants, be sure to watch that 4-minute video that is posted in the chat. That link is also a part of the Notice of Funding Opportunity posted on the IWD website. So that way you can make sure you know how to do that. I strongly encourage you to start that process early. You can go ahead and create an account now. And because that process does take a little bit of time, and then you can start working through the application itself. You do need to type those responses into the Iowa grant system. You simply cannot drag and drop a Word document as all of your responses. You do have to type your responses into those different various areas. Okay. Now I'm not going to be able to probably answer every question that's in the chat, but I'll try to answer a few. But like I said, what we'll do is we will create a Q&A document and attach that to the posting of the recorded webinar, and we'll post that on Iowa Grants, or I'm sorry, on the IWD website. And then I will be using the registration list to hopefully send out an email saying that this has been posted and here's the link. Right. So I'll just scroll through a couple of the questions to see if I can answer any of these really quickly. Can the applicant be a nonprofit or a council of governments? I would refer you back to the notice of funding opportunity, and if you feel like you've meet those requirements, I encourage you to apply. But again, I'll refer you back to the notice of funding opportunity. Are private individuals, non-businesses, donations eligible for the match? So donations are not eligible to be considered as part of the match or part of the grant funds. So donations are not part of that. What if you don't have 50% enrollment? That is a question that we'll be addressing at that time. But those are the requirements of the award. So if you do not believe that you are able to meet the 50% threshold, maybe you would need to consider some alternative building plans at that point. Does the applicant have any financial or legal liability regarding the project being completed or complying with the federal requirements? Yes, a lot, obviously, because if the applicant is awarded, then you do have the financial liability. You have the liabilities for building the center, and so there would be several financial and legal liabilities regarding that project. There's the posting. Do floor plans and fire marshal inspections have to be approved before the grant is submitted? I'm not quite sure exactly I understand that question. If you're saying, do you have to have the floor plans approved by Dial prior to you submitting an application? No. But all that has to be done prior to you becoming a licensed childcare center, obviously. So, and that's a lengthy process. So, if that's the question, hopefully I answered that. All right, just a couple more to get us to about 12:15. Can the applicant be the childcare center? Or does it have to be the supporting business? The answer to that is that one of the eligibility requirements is that the applicant cannot already be in the primary business of providing childcare. So if a childcare center wants to be the applicant, then they would be considered an ineligible applicant. If construction and bidding are already getting started, is it too late? Or if the procurement policy was followed, is it possible to apply? For this award, the period of performance begins, I believe it was February 1st of 2025. So anything done outside of that period of performance would be considered ineligible. As a school district, we provide education as our primary purpose, but we also provide childcare before and after school. So school districts are an interesting applicant. So if you can send me an email on that, because it kind of, we need to get a little bit more information, such as is your childcare center or your before and after school program licensed with the state of Iowa with HHS, or is it not? And also, how many participants do you have in those programs versus compared to your student population? So a little bit more goes into school districts. So All right. I'll see if I can get one more. Thank you, Communications, for putting my email address in there as well. It's also listed in the notice of funding opportunity. But yeah, definitely send me an email if you have any questions regarding that. But like I said, we will try to get the Q&A document sent out at the same time as we post the recording of this webinar. I'll try to get this last question in. Is it allowable for the contract with the general contractor to be directly with the childcare facility, or does it have to be with the business? With that, again, the award is with the business, and so the business is the one incurring the expenses, not the childcare center. So, okay. Again, it's 12:15, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Like I said, those were some quick answers. Some of them are probably more generalized than what you might be looking for. But definitely, if you have specific questions, reach out to me, and I'll do my best to respond to those. And like I said, I encourage you to go ahead and start get a profile started in IowaGrants.gov if you don't already have one. So that piece is already taken care of. So again, thank you all very much for joining me today, and we hope to see your application.